If you're 30 pounds or more overweight, you are sitting on at least 100,000 calories of debt. And just like financial debt, you can't ignore it and hope it goes away. You need a strategic plan to pay it off. And right now, your current plan, that basic calorie deficit you've created by starving yourself and doing tons of cardio, is not working. And in this video, I'm going to show you the 5-step system to fix it. But before I do, you're probably wondering, what is calorie debt? What is this guy even talking about? What does he mean 100,000 calories of debt? How are calories debt? Here's the math. Every single pound of fat on your body represents 3,500 calories. So if you're just 30 pounds overweight, that's 30 times 3,500. It's actually 105,000 calories, and that is your calorie debt. Let's address the big problem here. I've worked with over 1,200 clients and helped them lose a combined 10,000 plus pounds. The vast majority of them come to me after trying one of two things. They either slashed their calorie intake down to nothing and tried to white knuckle their way through it, or they started doing hours of cardio every week trying to burn it all off through willpower. And some were doing both, massively restricting their intake and massively increasing their output. And technically that does work, it will get the weight off, but usually it's only in the short term. The second that they actually stop doing the cardio and they stop massively restricting the calories, all of the weight just comes right back. And here's why. When you focus purely on hyper restricting calorie intake or hyper increasing calorie output, you're not building or bare minimum maintaining muscle mass. And muscle mass is your insurance policy against gaining the weight back. Without it, the moment that you stop actively restricting or exercising and creating output, your metabolism has nothing protecting it. So you gain the weight back, you lose the calorie deficit. So the solution here is not to obsess over restricting harder or burning as many calories as possible at whatever cost. It's to treat this like paying off debt with a strategic, calculated plan. And that's exactly what I'm going to show you in this video. A 5-step plan to get out of calorie debt and actually keep the weight off. So let's get into it. So step number 1, you have to calculate your calorie debt. You need to figure out how many calories in debt that you are. So here's what you need to actually calculate this. First, you need your current body weight. You're also going to need your target body weight at a BMI of around 25 for your height. Now, I'm going to put a graph on the screen that shows you how to figure out what your 25 BMI body weight is based on your height. Now, this is the part where some people get frustrated with me because they realize how much weight they need to lose, but don't shoot the messenger. 25 is actually me being lenient. That's technically still overweight, but I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt here, hoping that if you lose weight, how I tell you to in this video, you'll gain some muscle mass along the way, because to be fair, BMI can be a flawed metric for individuals like athletes and bodybuilders who have a low body fat percentage and high muscle mass. Their risk of all of the overweight implications are significantly less than that of somebody who is also a 25 BMI or overweight, but with a high body fat and low muscle mass. However, it's important to know that the opposite is true too. Somebody can be a BMI healthy, 24 or less, but still have a very high body fat and low muscle mass and still be at a higher risk of negative health implications than the typical healthy BMI person. But if I had to be really honest with you, depending on where you are at, you likely aren't going to put on enough muscle or get to a low enough body fat percentage in the process of getting down to a 25 BMI that you would be considered one of those athlete or bodybuilder anomalies. So probably still shoot to get to a 25 BMI or lower just to be safe. Now, here's the actual formula to figure out your calorie debt. You need to take your current body weight, subtract your target body weight at BMI 25, and that will give you your pounds to lose. You then multiply your pounds to lose by 3,500. So sticking to the same example I used in the beginning of the video, if you're 30 pounds overweight, that's 30 times 3,500, which is 105,000 calories of debt. Now that you have that number, write it down and get ready for step 2. Step 2 is calculating your timeline and daily deficit needs. Now, this one's pretty straightforward. You just have to figure out, hey, when do you want to get out of calorie debt by? AKA, when are you trying to get to a 25 or lower BMI? So let's continue to use the same example of 30 pounds and 105,000 calories of debt. And you want to get it gone in 90 days. Here would be the math. You just take 105,000, divide it by 90, and that's going to get you an 1,167 calorie deficit per day in order to achieve it. That's how much of a deficit that you need to create every single day if you want to pay off that calorie debt in the next 90 days. Now, the question is, how do you create that deficit effectively and sustainably. Hey, real quick, if you're a fellow business owner that is struggling to lose weight sustainably, every solution that you have tried has led to you gaining the weight back, or it's caused you to just destroy your metabolism in the process. I have a coaching program, and to date, I have worked with over 1,200 clients and helped them lose a combined total of over 10,000 pounds. Now, that's without relying on any sort of medications, weight loss injectables, or any extreme diets or extreme workout routines, and also making sure that we're accommodating for your time-stressed, demanding life as a business owner. So if that even sounds remotely interesting, check out the links below, fill out an application, and see if we might be a fit to work together. Other than that, hope you're enjoying the video. Enjoy the rest of it. Enter step 3, which is where you figure out your total daily energy expenditure. Because in order to create that deficit of 1,167 calories, you need to first know what that total daily output that you have is. So TDEE, total daily energy expenditure. This is the total number of calories that your body burns in a 24-hour period. And the way that you can calculate it is simply using an online calculator. There is actual formulas, but we do live in the 21st century now, so you should be able to just go online, look up Mifflin-St. Jeor formula, plug in your metrics, and it will give you your total daily energy expenditure. It will likely show you your BMR as well, basal metabolic rate. But the number that you want here is TDEE. So let's say that you find out your total daily energy expenditure is 2,500 calories. In order to create a 1,167 calorie deficit, you really have two options. Option number 1 is the pure calorie restriction route. You could technically eat just 2,500 minus 1,167, which equals out to 1,333 calories per day, while changing nothing about your activity levels. But let me put that into perspective for you. A Chipotle burrito with steak, white rice, pinto beans, cheese, sour cream, and guac, that's 1,340 calories, which would be your entire daily caloric allowance, just that one burrito, and you're done. Not too fun, right? Now, option 2 is you do pure caloric output. So you could eat exactly 2,500 calories a day and then find a way to burn 1,167 calories per day through exercise. But again, let me put that into perspective for you about what that actually looks like tangibly. That would be the equivalent of you needing to run for a full hour at a 10-minute mile pace. It's about 6 miles. Or walk for 2 hours and 15 minutes. About 8 miles. Or you could do cycling for an hour and 15 minutes at a moderate pace, about 16 miles. Now, technically, that output number changes based on your current weight, your age, your sex, etc. But I'm running that off of the typical 250 to 300 pound or higher individual. They're going to burn a lot more calories in that time period than somebody who's maybe already sub 200 pounds and in a lot better shape. So that does vary widely, but considering this video is pretty much designed for people who do have that significant amount of weight to lose. If you're in significant calorie debt, that's about what you can expect from an output level in order to reach that deficit. And let me remind you that you would need to do any of those activities I described daily, every single day. If you miss, you get behind on your timeline of paying off that calorie debt within, again, the example of 90 days. So focusing entirely on intake kind of sucks, but so does focusing entirely on output. Most people focus on one or the other, and that is where they go wrong, because eventually you're going to drop the ball on one of them. So the answer is we have to do both. But before we actually build your plan, let's go a little deeper with your understanding of total daily energy expenditure, because there's a smarter way to do this that most people completely miss. So step 4 is understanding your BMR, which is a massive part of your total daily energy expenditure, your TDEE. That TDEE is made up of a few different components, but again, BMR, basal metabolic rate, is the biggest one. That is the calories you burn just existing, just being alive, breathing, thinking, your heart beating. That's BMR. It's your baseline needs for survival. And again, what most people don't realize is that BMR makes up 60 to 70% of your total daily calorie burn. So if your total daily energy expenditure is 2,500 calories, anywhere from 1,500 to 1,750 of those calories are coming from your BMR alone. So the critical question that we have to ask is, hey, how do we actually increase our BMR and just give ourselves a bigger baseline? And the answer is through adding muscle mass. Muscle tissue burns approximately 6 calories per pound per day at rest. And that might not sound like much, but over time that adds up significantly. If you build 10 pounds of muscle, that's an extra 60 calories per day your body burns just existing, which is over 21,000 calories per year. But here's where it gets even more important. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition followed postmenopausal women through weight loss and weight regain, and what they found was that during weight loss, For every 1 kilogram of fat lost, 0.26 kilograms of lean tissue was also lost. But during weight regain, for every 1 kilogram of fat regained, only 0.12 kilograms of lean tissue was regained. In other words, fat mass is regained to a greater degree than lean mass. Women who lost more lean mass during their weight loss phase regained 20% more weight in the following year compared to women who preserved their lean mass. Now, while this study was done specifically on women, they have found similar findings in men as well. So it's safe to say a similar principle will apply for men and women with this. And this is why muscle mass is your insurance policy. When you lose weight without preserving or building muscle, you are lowering your BMR. And when you stop actively restricting calories or exercising, your lower BMR means you gain the weight back faster. And you gain it back as fat, not muscle. So this isn't merely a conversation of how do I create a calorie deficit? It's a conversation about how do I create a calorie deficit while preserving or building muscle so I actually keep the weight off long term. And that's exactly what step 5 is all about. Step 5 is building your plan. So this is where we put it all together. You understand what your calorie debt is. You know your timeline and your daily deficit needs. You also know your total daily energy expenditure. You understand why muscle is your insurance policy. Now we have to actually build a plan that lets you preserve and build muscle while you are in that deficit and trying to get the weight off. Now remember, we need to do both, consume fewer calories and increase caloric output, but we need to do it strategically to preserve that muscle. So your plan has 2 components. Component 1 is how much of your daily deficit will come from reducing your caloric intake. Now my honest anecdotal recommendation here, I don't have any data on this other than what I've seen work successfully for my clients, is get about 60 to 70% of your daily deficit through restricting caloric intake. So if we use the 2,500 total daily energy expenditure and 1,167 total calorie deficit required example from earlier in the video, that would mean you would be eating 700 to 817 calories less than 2,500 per day, putting you between 1,683 and 1,800 calories consumed per day. Now, quick pro tip, to preserve and build muscle while you are in a calorie deficit, you need to eat enough protein, but that's almost a topic for an entirely separate video. So real quick, how much protein should you be eating? It's 0.8 to 1.0 grams of protein per pound of your target body weight. So if your target body weight was 200 pounds, it gets you to around 25 BMI. You'd be eating anywhere from 160 to 200 grams of protein per day while still maintaining that calorie deficit or that calorie ceiling that we're talking about here. Now, component 2 of your plan is figuring out how much of your daily deficit will come from increasing your caloric output through exercise. And based on my previous recommendation, this is going to leave you with anywhere from 350 to 467 calories left to burn each day. Again, using the hypothetical example of 2,500 total daily energy expenditure and wanting to lose 30 pounds in the next 90 days. Now, again, I want to reiterate that exact calories burned varies drastically based on your own biometrics, exercise intensity levels, but it's safe to estimate about 40 to 50 calories burned per 1,000 steps and 100 to 150 calories per half hour of resistance training. So if you can average 8,000 steps per day, that alone will put you at 320 to 400 calories burned per day. Then if you lift weights for an hour 3 times per week, it's an additional 600 to 900 additional weekly calories, which spread across 7 days is anywhere from 85 to 128 calories per day, not including the improvement in your BMR due to building muscle mass through resistance training. So here is one of the most important parts of this, and it's what makes this plan vary tremendously person to person. It's that some people prefer leaning into higher activity levels as the main mechanism for their deficit. Others prefer pulling back on diet as the main mechanism. Both can work so long as the core principle of generating your target daily deficit is met. So again, if you need to create a 1,167 calorie daily deficit, you could do it from 60 to 70% from diet restriction, like I recommended, and 30 to 40% from exercise. Again, my honest recommendation is that. Or you could increase it and go 80% from diet and 20% from exercise if you prefer less activity, or maybe your lifestyle leans that way. Or there's people that I know who have done way less from diet. They only do about 40% of those calories from the diet and 60% from the exercise because they have the time to put in a higher activity level and a higher caloric output. The key here is just hit your daily deficit, eat high protein, and focus on resistance training as your primary form of exercise through this cut. This is ultimately going to be how you work smarter, not harder, and this is how you pay off your calorie debt while preserving your metabolism in the process. So let's recap the entire 5-step system that we covered. Step 1 is to calculate your calorie debt. Remember, you take your current body weight minus your target body weight at a 25 BMI, and you get your pounds to lose. You take pounds to lose, multiply that by 3,500, and you'll find your calorie debt total. Step 2, calculate your timeline and daily deficit. So, for example, you want to lose that weight in 90 days. You take your calorie debt number, divide it by 90, and that will give you your daily deficit required in order to lose the weight in that timeline. Step 3, calculate your total daily energy expenditure. Simply use the Mifflin-St. Jeor equation to find out your total daily energy expenditure. You can find that online for free. Step 4, understand your BMR, or your basal metabolic rate. Your BMR makes up 60 to 70% of your total daily energy expenditure. And muscle mass is a big determining factor in your BMR. Studies have also shown that losing muscle during weight loss equals a lower BMR and faster weight regain. So muscle mass is your insurance policy through this process. Make sure you are resistance training and consuming a high enough protein intake. Step 5, it's just building out your plan in full. And the big theme here is you have to reduce your calories while eating a high protein intake and increase your activity while focusing on resistance training 3 to 4 times per week. The flexibility that you get with your plan is that you can split up your deficit total however works for you. If you want to focus more on calorie restriction, great. If you want to focus more on caloric output, that's fine too, so long as you do it in a way where we are preserving muscle mass. So that's the 5-step system. You now have a strategic, calculated plan to pay off your calorie debt, just like you would pay off financial debt, while preserving your muscle mass so you actually keep the weight off long term. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Be sure to do all of the YouTube stuff, share it with a friend, leave a comment, and I'll see you in the next one.